Today I'd like to do a close reading of The Mouse's Petition by Anna Letitia Barbauld. It was written in 1773 at the height of what's often called the cult of sensibility of the 18th century. This involved the idealization of the capacity for powerful emotional response to the sufferings of others. In other words, the ability to be moved by the plight of people that one has no direct interest in. The theory behind the ideal of sensibility was that it would promote benevolence. The more able we are to feel for others, the more we will actually work to alleviate suffering and make the world a better place. So we can see that in this poem called The Mouse's Petition. It's essentially a poem about and against cruelty towards animals. You can see from the dedication to Dr. Priestley, this is the man who is credited with discovering oxygen, but using mice in his experiments. So the speaker is taking issue with that. So first things we should think about here, who is the speaker of the poem? What do we notice about the language of the poem? How is the point of the poem being made? Is it a rational and logical argument? Is it an emotional appeal? Notice how much is presented from the point of view of the mouse itself. This first crucial quality of the poem, then, is that Barbauld empathizes, as we would say it in 18th century parlance. Sympathizes is as strong as empathizes is for us. Anyway, she sympathizes with the mouse to such a degree that she projects herself into its feelings. So we can see this in the mixture of rhetorical appeals and highly emotive language. Notice in the first two stanzas, the wretch's cries, forlorn, tremble. All of this is very, very powerful emotional language. So the poem isn't based on a strictly rational appeal. She's not just giving logical reasons why not to use this mouse in an experiment, but she places a great deal of weight on the emotional appeal to the reader based on the feelings of the mouse. So in stanza 1, she begs her listener, "Never let your heart be shut against the wretch's cries." And this rhetoric is very political as well. We have an educated mouse here. If e'er thy breast with freedom glowed and spurned a tyrant's chain, let not thy strong oppressive force a free-born mouse detain. So the rhetoric of freedom and tyranny here elevates the mouse to the level of humanity and suggests a basic equality there. But the mouse is also being used to make a political point. The line "free-born mouse" recalls the famous phrase "free-born Englishman." Barbauld is thus suggesting that human beings should be as free of oppressive forces as this mouse is. Another typical characteristic of sensibility is the moral message is always drawn out of suffering. So the stanza, "The well-taught philosophic mind to all compassion gives, casts round the world an equal eye, and feels for all that lives." So Barbauld here summarizes the moral lesson of the mouse and seeks to persuade her reader that the sentimental response, the feeling response, is not irrational, but is actually representative of a higher mental state, the well-taught philosophic mind. So it's not just about having weak feelings, it's actually about being in a higher mental state. Or later she says, "Beware lest in the worm you crush a brother's soul you find." This is literally referring to the idea of reincarnation, the idea that you probably wouldn't step on a worm if you knew that you were going to be reincarnated as a worm later, but also figuratively appealing to the sense of kinship between all living things. So Barbauld's poem is an exhortation towards benevolence, albeit within a relatively limited sphere, the saving of a single mouse. And in this, she embodies the basic principle of sensibility, that one should respond to the feelings of all living things. But she does also embody one of the major weaknesses that sensibility is accused of, and that's the question of practicality. What does this ultimately accomplish? And critics of sensibility very often claim that this theory did not hold good in practice. So we're going to talk more about that theory in classes next week.